In tonight's Tax Insider, the Omnibus. By week's end, congressional leaders are expected to secure a Christmas compromise on tax cuts and spending. The Omnibus will extend dozens of tax breaks and keep government open through 2016. Joining me with the latest is David Williams, president of the nonpartisan Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Dave, in your reaction to this bill, you channeled an epic spaghetti western. I'm talking about the 1966 movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, starring Clint Eastwood. Let's start with the good.
That's right, Morris. I feel like I should be wearing, a cowboy hat, smoking on that little cigar that Clint Eastwood smoked on, because this is really the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when you talk about the good, we have internet access taxes, is that the moratorium has been extended so people don't have to pay taxes on just accessing the internet. Now that moratorium goes until September. Now granted, we wanted that to be permanent, but we take victories where we can. And another big victory was that when you have export on oil and the crude oil, is that this was lifted. This has been a 40-year ban, so now companies can export crude oil, which is going to be a huge deal for the economy and for taxpayers. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars coming into the Treasury by the sale of crude oil outside the United States. So that's been very good for taxpayers.
Okay, on to the bad. You include defense earmarks, solar and wind subsidies, and essential air service. Tell us more.
Well, here we go again, the Defense Department. This is where the earmarks are. Last year, we found about $13 billion worth of earmarks in defense appropriations. Now, this is a time where Congress has said that they got rid of earmarks. Well, they didn't get rid of earmarks. They're still in there. And this omnibus, we identified at least a $950 million program, Defense Health Services, or the Defense Health Program, where there's going to be earmarks, $953 million worth of earmarks. Now, they haven't released a full list yet, but we're still going to go through and find all these earmarks. And you mentioned the Essential Air Service. Boy, this is just a complete waste of money, is that you have taxpayers funding airports to have like one flight a day. These are small airports, whether it's Hagerstown, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, where they subsidize passengers to fly out of these airports for really no apparent reason.
Follow the money.
Yep.
We know it every time. And you call the process itself ugly. Why?
Well, it's been ugly for a number of years because this is legislating by deadline, legislating by crisis. Is that Christmas is next week, Morris, and we're talking about spending bills. They're supposed to do this in September. October 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year, and they're doing this in December. And they released this bill at 1:34 a.m. in the morning. So this is when everyone is supposedly asleep, except for us taxpayer watchdog groups.
Right.
But now they want to vote on this on Friday, so we have 3 days to go through a 2,000-page bill and figure out everything that's in it. And Congress has to do this also. So every member of Congress has to read 2,000 pages between now and Friday to figure out what's in it and whether to vote for it or against it. But the joke is, Morris, is that no one's going to read it.
No.
They're going to vote for it because they want to go home for Christmas. They don't want to have to deal with this anymore, and just expediency.
You are exactly right. All right, before we move on, let's talk about the Ryan effect. The Omnibus will be Representative Paul Ryan's first big spending bill as House Speaker. Initially, fiscal conservatives applauded his appointment, but what about now?
Well, okay, this budget mess really isn't his fault per se, and I think we should maybe give him a mulligan on this because a lot of this happened before he became Speaker. John Boehner left in late October, and he became Paul Ryan became Speaker in late October. So he's been in charge for about a month and a half. So we're going to give him a mulligan on this one. But there's a lot of problems with this. Is he needs to clean up this whole process. And we're hoping that next year, during an election year, I know it sounds crazy for Congress to clean anything up during an election year, but we're hoping that this is the beginning. So we're going to give Paul Ryan a mulligan. We're not happy with what happened, but we'll see what happens next year.
Now, the Federal Reserve has just raised short-term interest rates for the first time in nearly a decade. It's a huge financial story, but it also impacts taxpayers. Explain that, Dave.
Well, this was a fascinating move by the Fed because people were waiting to see if they were going to raise the interest rates. Raising the interest rates shows you that the economy is gaining a little steam, or at least the Fed thinks that the economy is getting better with unemployment. So how this affects taxpayers is that a lot of banks have money in the Fed that they get interest from. So this is going to raise that interest rate, so banks are getting money from the taxpayer to pay these interest rates. And it's not a very well-known kind of aspect of raising the interest rates, but this is how it affects taxpayers, but also the debt. And when we accumulate the debt and we have the deficit spending, basically we're borrowing money from the Fed. So when interest rates go up, so do the payments to China and other countries to service the debt. So this is how taxpayers are going to be affected by rising interest rates. But it's actually not the worst thing that could happen to the economy, because it shows a little bit of confidence coming back into the economy.
Real quick before we go, Dave, you just got back from Ukraine. What was that about?
So what we did was we actually started a taxpayer group in Ukraine, the Ukraine Economic Freedoms Foundation.
Wow.
And they are going to lobby for reduced spending, for lower taxes, and get rid of regulations. Just last week, they eliminated 22 agricultural regulations that's going to help their economy. And as a taxpayer group, I will go wherever they ask me to go to help promote these ideas of taxpayer rights. And they're going to become an active lobbying group looking for change. And Morris, as you know, Ukraine has been absolutely corrupt. So this is a great step in the right direction to bring some sort of fiscal responsibility to a country that desperately needs it.
Good luck with that. The worldwide David Williams, president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.